When it comes to the world of global supply chains, one thing the pandemic did really show was the importance of small distance. Like shorter supply routes can be a lot easier to maintain, less things can go wrong with them. However, you are never really ever going to fully get rid of long supply routes. It's just impossible. The world is just completely so globally interconnected through all these different trade routes. We've talked, well, we haven't talked a bit about, but we should probably talk a bit more about, and we will probably today as well. The Panama Canal, less ships going through there because of the Houthi rebel attacks that they are doing on shipping. Shipping has dropped by about, I think, 30%. Means longer supply routes, meaning having to go around the Horn of Africa, meaning all those ports around there have become overloaded because they aren't prepared for that volume of shipping. Fuel prices, I think, have gone up by like 40%. Not only that, but this also affects Egypt's economy as well. The Suez Canal is a massive part of their economy. They've lost millions, if not billions, of pounds worth of revenue of shipping not going through the Suez Canal. So that is a big problem. It's increased distribution times, costs, everything going on. Big problem. But unfortunately, it's not just here. Turns out Panama Canal, again, one of the biggest, easiest, convenient shipping routes, again, created years and decades ago, but still very, very much used today just because of how convenient it is to use. That's now got problems. There are other problems now caused. The tensions now rising, of course, in the Middle East. Worries now about oil prices, what that is going to affect. So global supply chains could come very soon under a lot of pressure. And that could mean that inflation, even though as we have started to see inflation steadily go down across the board, across all countries, it now might start to rise again. So this is certainly going to cause a lot of problems and a lot of headaches, not only for economies around the world, but for businesses and etc. It is going to be an absolute nightmare. But before we get more talking about this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the One Off Nation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So let's crack on then into this. This is title of Global Supply Chains Are Now Under Pressure Again. Will inflation start rising? So with the pandemic and now upended global trade and though lockdowns and travel restrictions still fresh in managers' minds, international supply chains are under pressure again. Shippers are now facing myriad of issues, from conflicts in the Middle East, drought in Central America, to strike action in the US. Companies are now finding it more difficult and more expensive to transport supplies. So how bad is the supply chain squeeze? So global shippers have now been faced with a growing number of headaches in moving goods over the last year. Top of the list is the disruption in the Middle East. The impact on the movement of trade through the Red Sea. The traffic has plummeted by 2/3 through a very key shipping route since attacks on vessels by Houthi rebels began last year. The route accounted for 12% of all global trade before attacks began. So you can see traffic has plummeted. As we said at the beginning, massive part of Egypt's economy, that this happens. I would not be surprised if in some way, shape, or form, Egypt gets involved in trying to mediate the dispute going on, not only just Egypt, but potentially even Saudi Arabia. We know that a lot of countries, a lot of the sort of countries in that area are grouping up together to put pressure on not only Israel, but also on America as well to sort of come to a peace agreement. How involved a lot of these other countries are going to be, we don't know. A lot of people are suspecting that Saudi Arabia will probably play a large part in it. Who knows? Again, we don't know what will happen, what this will end like, but we know certainly one thing: Israel doesn't seem to certainly have an end game in plan for this. So many companies, including now major shipping firms such as Maersk, have all abandoned the route, instead opting to travel around the Cape of Good Hope, which can add 10 days of travel to the journey and significant costs. This fresh flare-up in tensions in the Middle East in recent days has now raised fears that even more ships may now shun the route. Peter Sam, the chief analyst of a shipping analytics platform Zentha, believes that the latest escalation may have a very smaller impact. At most, as most container ships are now already avoiding the Red Sea. However, he warns that further deterioration of the political situation means now a large-scale return of container ships to the Red Sea region seems to be a more distant prospect. And bear in mind, it's not just the Red Sea that is going to have a problem. Countries like Greece, which really rely on also shipping for their economy, very often the first port of call for many of those ships once they've gone through is Greece, is the ports in Greece. So again, going to have a big impact on the Greek economy as well. Like I say, big impacts on a lot of economies because of this. So separately, though, traffic through the Panama Canal has also dropped. So this is yet another big problem, as we alluded to earlier. So traffic through the Panama Canal has also dropped after a drought has now forced its operator to reduce the cap on ships that could travel through it early this year from 36 to just 20 a day. Fears now, of course, a trade disruption also being further exacerbated by the port workers' strikes on the east coast of the US. On Thursday, 50,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association went on strike indefinitely, affecting over 14 different ports across the east coast of the US. Mark Fergoni, the general director of the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade, said that all these issues are now have meant that the highly fragile supply chains are now facing exponential pressure. He said that Russia's invasion of Ukraine and, of course, the US-China trade standoff, as well as such events in the Baltimore Bridge collapse, have also added to supply chain pressures. So all this stuff, supply chains are under so much pressure than they were before. And it is going to have an impact. It is going to have a very, very big impact. Expect prices to rise. That's one thing. Inflation may very well start to go up as well. It is going to be very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. And I'll say this now. One thing is infrastructure projects and building potentially is going to become a lot more expensive. And with, of course, we know that Labour is going to sort of slash what it considers unnecessary infrastructure projects. It may even find it more difficult and even prices rise on infrastructure projects it wants to build because of these types of global supply chain issues that are now going on in the world. It's just it's completely unavoidable. But you know, I think we've got a lot more, shall we say, sensible government than we did before. So, you know, we'll see how they handle it. But as always, let me know what you think down below, because I can see these pressures becoming very, very problems. Of course, the Panama Canal, that is not just a global supply chain issue. That's also a climate issue as well, because that is linked to droughts. And of course, why do we get more droughts? We're getting more hotter summers, particularly in that region. And of course, what's that linked to? Climate change. So, you know, it's all interconnected, all very, very much so interconnected on this. You know, and I'm very, very much for global interconnection. I think the more that countries are interconnected, the more they trade with each other, the more that is good with everyone else. You know, spread the wealth, share the wealth around, better for everyone. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.